For Creamer Media's Polity, I'm Motshabi Hoaeane. Researcher and analyst Professor Raymond Suttner discusses the politics of imagery, the economic freedom fighters and the ANC. Thank you so much for your time, Professor. You suggest that the EFF have been skillful in their use of imagery through how they dress. Do you believe this will enhance the electoral support or the electoral appeal, rather?
Yes, I think we're living in an age when imagery has become more important than the actual message. We see this in, well, let's say the message of the Arab Spring was also part of what was conveyed through the social media. But you have this situation in the world at large where one is able to spread an image very widely, very quickly. So how you deal with imagery is very important. And I think that people are fascinated in South Africa with the EFF because without analyzing difficult concepts and policies, they do things that comprise a type of political theatre. And people find this shocking, entertaining, exciting. Parliament is much more interesting, people say, now that the EFF are there, dressed up in this way. And I think, I don't know whether this will translate into electoral gains, but I think we've got to understand that they have appreciated much better than the ANC the importance of using the language of imagery. And the ANC's response was very heavy-handed by trying to counter this with, well, this is contrary to the decorum of the House, or in the case of Gauteng and Eastern Cape, to throw them out. That is not the way to respond. I think the ANC itself should look at its own imagery, because after all, both the ANC and the EFF claim to be radical, but it's not clear that what they in fact offer constitutes something that will change people's lives. So in both cases, it's very important, when you may not deliver, to actually use the imagery of someone who will change the lives of the people who observe them. Now, the EFF, by wearing the clothes of labourers and domestic workers, have put these people, people who work as domestic workers, they put them in the centre of public life in Parliament. So in doing that, whether they in fact will represent their interests is another matter. But the imagery they convey suggests this. So it will make a difference to their electoral performance in the future.
You suggest that the ANC, in its handling of the EFF dress, repudiates some of its own history.
Yes, you know, the ANC is an organization whose important moments of history can be identified partly by the dress that they wore. There was the period before the formation of the ANC when there was resistance by various chiefdoms, the time of the spear. But when the ANC was formed, and even before it was formed, it was the time of the suit, when they met with the British and then tried to win over the Crown against certain legislation in South Africa. First the Act of Union, then the Natives Land Act, and so on. And in this period, the imagery of the suit was very important. Some people have ridiculed it, but I will argue, I'll write something about this at some point, that the suit was in fact, can be interpreted as petitioning, But by wearing the clothes of the British ruling class, one is in some ways making a claim. By sitting at the table wearing the clothes the suit was invented for the British ruling class. In some senses, by wearing that, one is saying, I am a British subject, I therefore deserve these rights. Later on in the development of the struggle against segregation and apartheid, you see other imagery. For example, in the period of the Defiance campaign, volunteers wear a military-type uniform together with a Gandhi cap, so that the imagery is mixed. On the one hand, they are militant, but on the other hand, they also indicate that they are willing to talk for peace. The Gandhi hat, I would say, is a symbol of non-violence, and they were pledged to non-violence there. You then have the imagery of MK, Mandela first being pictured when he's on a television interview saying that we have closed the door on non-violence. And although he's not wearing military uniform there, though his overall appearance is one of an aggressive response to apartheid oppression. When he appears in court, he again uses dress very effectively. He wears abatembu, beads, shawl, etc. And he is in a sense saying, I am a man with multiple identities. Apartheid has tried to suppress these. I proudly own these. He again appears in court in a dignified way, wearing the type of clothes that he wore as a lawyer when he gives his willingness to die speech. He goes to prison, and when he comes out, it's the time of the toi-toi. The toi-toi is the time of military struggle. It's a masculine war dance. Mandela enters that dance, but he doesn't do it in an aggressive way. He understands that this is a time when people in South Africa need reassurance that there will be peace, that there will not be revenge against whites. So when he dances, he fits in with the others who are performing the toi-toi aggressively, but he smiles and he's inclusive and he's giving a sense of all of us belonging and building this new South Africa. So dress is language, and the ANC has used language effectively in the past. So it is significant that they don't respond. They respond to the EFF with disciplinarian type notions, sobriety and decorum, whereas what they need to do is have counter-imagery that can appeal in an alternative way, which is distinctive for the ANC. But perhaps the ANC is exhausted from patronage, corruption, fighting for positions, illegality, and has not had time to think about this.
Thank you so much. Interesting insights there. That was Professor Raymond Suttner on political symbolism.